For our rhetorical analysis project, we are analyzing Natural World, a farm for the future. The documentary portrays Rebecca Hosking's struggle against competing with the mechanized oil-dependent food industry. Hosking presents her story primarily through personal narration as she is on a quest to determine how sustainable the current food industry is, how secure the oil supply is for the future, and how it can move towards a completely sustainable future in farming. As just stated, Hosking's primary tool of rhetoric in this documentary is narrative. She is portraying everything to her audience through her filter of her story. Her emotions, exigence, and logic are all intertwined in her speech as a tool to get the audience on her side. The documentary is an argument of inquiry, with persuasive undertones which eventually take priority. While the speaker, Rebecca Hosking, does not directly try to persuade the audience to turn towards more domestic organic farming practices, her narration alerts the audience to the exigence of the situation. Then the audience begins to share Hosking's concern toward the unsustainable nature of Britain's current means of food production. Hosking indirectly persuades the viewers by including them in her journey of inquiry. Like most pieces of rhetoric, Hosking effectively utilizes ethos, logos, and pathos together to sway the audience to accept her opinion as the correct one.
By telling one's story effectively, a speaker can establish a solid base of ethos. Narration uses a means of showing how the speaker has struggled and is a primary source regarding the issue at hand. Speakers have directly experienced what is being discussed and are therefore qualified to talk about said issue. The film uses personal experience and expert testimony to create a definite sense of exigence. Hosking uses extrinsic motivation to support her argument, the argument that we must use sustainable farming to even consider a viable future. But she primarily uses intrinsic motivation to guide the film's argument. She uses her connection to her farm to draw the audience into her story more than the fact that sustainable farming affects each and every viewer of the film. She states that the farm is her home and that she comes from a long line of farmers, but never indicates that she was a practicing farmer her entire life. She lets the audience make that assumption based on what she has said, thus giving her an image of being experienced, although the audience does not even know if that is true. However, she then continues to tell the hard work she participated in growing up on a farm, further strengthening her images as an experienced lifetime farmer. Hosking is often shown in the fields of her farm, shedding light that she is an experienced farmer even though she previously mentioned she was an animal photographer for some time. There's another point in the film where she is analyzing a sandwich's carbon footprint. By explaining her research to the audience herself, she attempts to show that she has done her homework and knows a good amount of information on how reliant farming is on fossil fuels. The film also utilizes a decent amount of expert testimony. The interviewees are often shown surrounded by books or in their field of study. This, of course, shows the audience that knowledge is present with the speaker, and they should take what they say as something of worth. Additionally, Hosking is always shown interviewing the expert, which just juxtaposes her as an equal to them in the academic sense. The focus is turned from just the academic to the academic speaking to Hosking, further propping up Hosking's ethos. At one point, she interviews several farmers who use alternative systems of farming. Each farmer is interviewed while walking in his or her respective farm to imply he or she knows what the system is, what it does, and why it is a better alternative. The audience will then assume that he or she knows what he is talking about because he or she is living proof that this new method is working out, and once again Rebecca is shown next to them to make her seem an equal.
Throughout her film, Hosking uses countless examples of facts and statistics to strengthen her argument. When truth in the form of such facts and statistics is revealed, the audience is naturally inclined to react. Given orally, facts can often have a deeper impact on a listener's thoughts. Through narration, the speaker can inflect the ways in which the statistics are presented. Using logos, the speaker will also employ a sense of pathos upon the audience because logic often leads to passion-based action. In the film, the facts given explain how the current farming industry is extremely unsustainable. some are so powerful that Hosking need only present the fact and the audience will deduce on their own that the food industry is majorly flawed. An example of this lies with the rapeseed flowers, which can be made into biofuel. The filmmaker juxtaposes the crop of flour, which can be used as a biofuel, against a statistic that a 4-acre crop worth would be used up in less than 1 second, based on Britain's current energy demands. The beautiful image with such a staggering statistic set behind it is meant to strike awe and most likely a bit of anger that such beauty is being exploited for something which can barely be used. The film uses nature as the best piece of logic that exists. By explaining nature as a grand million-year process, the audience is swayed to think that whatever nature prefers should be the best way because it is here before we were and has worked longer than our methods have, so why should we defy it? Nature prefers to have wild plants, trees, and indigenous organisms living in a coherent unit, each playing a role in keeping the ecosystem sustained. After planting the seeds in the viewer's head, the filmmaker presents a method of farming based on nature's preferred method, permaculture. By doing this, the audience easily jumps on the bandwagon to this as a possible solution before taking into consideration all the logistics of the situation because it just seems logical. Hosking presents another alternative to current farming methods, one where a multi-grass field is used opposed to plowing. Some grasses are used for purpose of bringing nutrients up from deep within the ground, while others have shallower roots to form a barrier above the soil so it is not easily damaged by sunlight or animals. This results in a perennial food supply for the animals without much damage to the soil. Once again, the method is shown in its entirety as a good alternative. The animals are shown grazing healthily and the landscape appears lush and healthy. All arguments are made in such a way to show that there are alternatives to oil-reliant farming. So we, as society, must pick one soon because they are not very difficult and make more sense than a method which kills soil, kills the land, and eventually kills the environment as a whole. Hosking also presents several smaller facts throughout the film. The way the facts are presented utilizes inductive reasoning. There are many statistics presented which do not necessarily relate directly to one another, but all of them together help the audience realize that the current way of farming is not sustainable. For example, unsustainable energy, in terms of fossil fuels, is in constant decrease of supply with about 2 to 3% per year over the past 150 years. Another example, for every calorie of food produced, we use 10 calories of fossil fuel energy. And the last one, a traditional farmer from the film had, at best, a 2-horsepower system to help with the harvest in the past. Today's food industry could not be sustained by such a system as the average tractor uses 400 horsepower each.
Pathos can help the speaker establish identification with the audience. Pathos can be more influential than logos because often humans tend to act on a more extreme level if driven by emotion and tend to throw whatever makes more sense at the time out the back door. Most of the images used in the film are images of beautiful landscapes which help draw the audience together. Nature, to the more majority of the population, has an aspect of beauty to it. Most people would rather see a beautiful landscape untouched by traditional farming than a piece of land destroyed from the plow. It creates sadness in the viewer to see the latter, but rejoice the happiness to see the former. This will lead the audience to support the methods which lead to the beautiful landscapes over the methods which destroy them. Ergo, they should support all alternative methods to fossil fuel-based farming presented by Hosking. By using sustainable methods, we can save the beauty which we value. In the few scenes that describe this, the entire status theory is used and takes the audience on an emotional ride along the way. The exigence of fossil fuel reliance is firmly established. The causes are effectively presented and the effects of it are shown through emotion-sparking visuals, usually images resulting in the emotions of sadness and possibly anger. Emotions as these easily get the audience on the side of the filmmaker. The value is clearly present because the British landscape is something near and dear to the citizens of the country. Hosking uses this to her advantage because most of her audience is composed of British citizens. It is an aspect of pride for them. The action is easily presented as anything except continuing the current method because the current method is so destructive. The statuses effectively draw the audience together into the mindset that the current method is destructive to something they all care about and something must change in order to preserve it. The jurisdiction is created by the consumer because they buy the food and outnumber the farmers. Hosking uses several examples of personal experience to draw sympathy and emotion from her audience. The intro is an effective example of pathos. We learn about Rebecca's childhood, family, and life. We begin to feel sympathy for Rebecca. She presents them in such a way that amplifies any struggle she has had with the farm and why it is so special to her. She quotes, "Where I grew up, the only place I really can call home, has to transform my family farm. If our farm is going to survive, it will have to change." Rebecca makes the audience realize that we need to care about this. She also interviews people that give the audience an emotional connection. Her friend Pearl. She slightly exploits an older woman's struggles to further show her struggle. Using these statements, Hosking is reaching out to all the listeners because we all need to eat. By placing an emotional twist on our food, she drags in all the aspects in life, which food aspects, spouse, family, children, pets, etc., beyond the human element. Hoskings bring in an animal element. Hosking uses many visuals of animals because animals often spark positive emotions in viewers. By juxtaposing those images with the proposition of alternating farming, the audience associates a positive feeling towards such methods.
In conclusion, we see that Hosking's use of narration creates a sense of personal experience. She effectively uses facts and presents them in a light where the logic does not seem to be breakable. Hosking also effectively uses visuals and statistics to draw an emotional response from our audience as a way to get them on the bandwagon to supporting a future of new and alternative farming methods.